Some of you guys have known me for a while, and you probably know that I've endured and experienced police abuse. I'm so lucky that I was not physically harmed or killed, but the damage is still with me today. That is what is so disturbing. I'm considered lucky when it comes to police abuse. Had my false accuser been a little bit more clever with her story and conjured up a better lie, the conclusion may have been different. I hate talking about this story because it doesn't only just bring up painful and traumatic memories, it also just frustrates me because I know that I'll never get the justice and closure that I want. In this video, I want to talk about something that is very challenging to bring up. I have trouble talking about this privately, but I feel the need to talk about this publicly now. A few people would ask me, what is jail like? I never want to answer or think about that question, but I should tell you and the rest of the world so that we can understand how easy it is for innocent people to end up in jail and to understand how dehumanizing this is. Normally, when you're arrested, you spend around 1 to 2 days in jail. But I spent 6 days in jail because Detective DeCoster had me arrested on a Thursday. So the soonest we could arrange to go to a bail hearing was the next Tuesday, because obviously the courts aren't open on the weekends. You're normally supposed to have your bail hearing after the day of the arrest, sometimes even on the day of the arrest. It is likely that DeCoster did this on purpose in order to cause as much pain and suffering as possible. The ironic thing is that DeCoster did not show up to the bail hearing, despite the fact that the judge and prosecutor were looking for him. I was arrested on Thursday, October 3rd, 2013. It was right before one of my history classes. The police officers arresting me were gentle and polite about it. They asked me if my cuffs were on too tight, and they even offered to kind of have this done in the police cruiser, because they even asked me, if you want to save face, we don't have to do this in front of everyone. But I told them that I'm confident this will be over soon. I'm confident that this is just something crazy happening. Obviously at the time I didn't have much context of what was going on. So I was arrested in front of my peers, and hundreds of UVA students just walked on by. I was first brought to the Charlottesville-Albemarle Regional Jail, and I was brought before this young woman who turned out to be the magistrate. She was kind, she was polite. She explained to me that I had to be kept in the jail overnight and that I should have video court with Fairfax County the next day. Unfortunately, she was wrong. Being checked into jail was this very long and boring process. They first took my backpack and all my stuff, took everything out, searched me. They asked me if I had any drugs or weapons on me. They then sent me to this room, this closed room that had a small plastic table, small plastic chair, and nothing else. I tried to get as comfortable as I could in such a situation. I remember lying down on the towel floor, trying to put my legs up on the table, trying to put my legs up on the chair. I waited there for what felt like at least an hour, probably more. In my enclosed waiting area, there was this second room. I guess I can say box, it wasn't really a room. They were just sort of adjacent to each other. I could see this middle-aged white woman also being booked in, and she was kept in this other box. I was kept in one. We even sort of tried to talk to each other through the glass. She asked me if I was a student at the university. I responded with a nod. And we just were both waiting there to be checked in. The rough part about it is that you felt like an animal. Everyone could see what you were doing inside the box, and there was just kind of this 360 view of what you were doing. Other people being checked in, other police officers, other guards could see what you were doing at all moments. I eventually had to use the bathroom, and I was taken to another nearby box, for lack of a better phrase. Inside this room, there was a very uncomfortable mattress, and then they had this little dinky gray toilet sink. I say toilet sink because it was one of those toilets that had a sink on top, and everyone could watch me pee and poop, essentially. But I had to go, so I did what I had to do. Talk about being unable to maintain classiness in the midst of challenge. 2 guards then called me over to ask for some routine data, such as my birthday, my ethnicity, my social security number, my background. They made a lot of fart jokes. One of them didn't know how to spell the word Asian. He asked if it was spelled with an S or a Z. They then gave me a white plastic wristband with an orange paper slip encased into it, and It had my photo, my name, and my prisoner ID number on it. Afterwards, I was told I was allowed 2 free phone calls, and then I was told to go back to that waiting area, but I could call when I wanted to. Each call was about 15 minutes, and I made the 2 calls to my family. That was quite a heavy experience. The worst part is that when you call from jail, the receiving party is notified of where the call is coming from. When I first called my family, I could hear the message playing for both sides. Please hold while we connect your call. An inmate from Charlottesville-Albemarle Regional Jail, Victor Zhang, is trying to call you. Press 1 to pick up. Press 2 to not accept. Press 3 to never accept calls from this institution. I was then brought to this room that was full of gray jumpsuits. Well, striped gray jumpsuits. The same guard who booked me in and the one who was making fart jokes from earlier was the one who brought me in. Okay, the guard said to me. Take it off. I blinked and gave him a very blank look. All of it? I asked, quite meekly. Everything. So I took off the shirt that I was wearing. It was a shirt from my high school with our high school logo on it. I started taking off the black jeans that I was wearing that day. Started to undress, take off my boxers, and then I was about to take off my socks. And then the guard told me, you can keep those on. He told me that as though that was supposed to really mean something to me. So there I was, butt naked like the day I was born, save for the black running socks I had on. Being stared at by a stranger as you're taking your clothes off is never a pleasant experience. And having him just look at you closely, is even more disturbing. I'm that kind of guy that showers in the locker room with a bathing suit on. This is not something that I am comfortable with at all. The guard then ordered me to stick out my tongue in various different positions, and he grabbed my cheeks to inspect closer to make sure that I wasn't hiding something in my mouth. And then afterwards, after that, he said this to me. Now, lift up your sack. Obviously, he was instructing me to lift up my testicles. I did as I was told. Turn around, he ordered. So I spun around, and then I heard this order that I hope I will never have to follow again. Bend over and pull your ass cheeks apart and cough. Apparently, the coughing makes it so that if you have something stuck up your butthole, like a knife or a weapon, it will pop out. The guard then grabbed one of these gray striped jumpsuits to give me. He threw me a pair of very thin gray shoes with very thin soles. It basically felt like you were wearing nothing but extremely thin socks. The jumpsuit had 4 buttons on it. Actually, it was supposed to have 4 buttons. I recall that the top button from my jumpsuit was missing. I was then given a blue plastic container that had sort of all the essentials, I guess. It had this handbook on all the rules in prison. It had the styrofoam cup that I discovered that you can't really replace. I actually broke it on the first day I spent in jail, so I couldn't really drink water normally. Some shampoo, a toothbrush, toothpaste in these tiny little plastic packets. For the first night, I was kept with 5 other inmates in this large space. There were about 10 bunk beds, if I recall, so we just each could pick a bunk. I was then transferred to a general holding area the next day. And in this holding area, it felt like a military barracks. There were 2 levels, probably about 30 bunks in total. And I just picked an empty bunk on the bottom level. All of the inmates were in this one room, so no privacy. There was 1 bathroom, but the only thing that provided privacy was this curtain. And then there was this crude shower. And again, the only thing giving you cover was a curtain, nothing else. There was fluorescent lighting. There was 1 television set. There was a cooler in case you wanted to keep food or leftover milk or leftover water there. There were 2 phones. I didn't use the phones that often because to make calls beyond your 2 free phone calls, you had to pay, and I didn't want to stress out my family. Meals were served 3 times a day. A guard would knock on the door outside the general waiting area and say, "Trays!" So when we heard that, we knew that it was time to eat. And the food was served on trays. That's why the guards shout trays. In a disturbing way, it reminds me of school lunches we were given in American public schools. Breakfast was served at 4:30 a.m. Lunch was served at around 11. Dinner was served at around 5. We were expected to go to sleep early and to wake up early. And I recall that the phones couldn't be used after 7 or 8 p.m. There was a small library with just a few books. The 3 books that I recall seeing was the Bible, this general comprehensive travel book, atlas, that had a summary of all the countries of the world, and a short novel that had very strong religious overtones. I spent most of my time trying to sleep. I talked to the other inmates politely, the majority of whom were curious about me because I was the only Asian male incarcerated at the time. And they were curious about my college background. They were curious about why a guy like me what was I doing there? Even one of the jail staff members was curious about me and invited me to her office. She was like an administrative assistant of some sort. I don't know her position exactly. Her last name was Harris, I believe. She called me in and just talked to me and asked me, what is a UVA student like you doing here? What's going on? And I explained my story, explained what I understood at the time, because obviously I didn't know everything. I didn't know everything about the accusation. I didn't know exactly what DeCoster did or did not do. And I proclaimed my innocence, and I proclaimed that I'm confident that this will end sooner rather than later. Miss Harris was very kind to me, and she said that I'll check up on you during the weekend, and if you're still not in court by Monday, I'll see what I can do for you. The other inmates were also very kind and supportive. They noticed that I was really down, probably depressed, I guess, and they supported me. They even shared their own experiences with the legal system. The majority of them were convicted for nonviolent crimes, and they gave me insight as to what the trial process was like, and even the process and the order of things. They explained to me what a preliminary trial means. They explained to me what a grand jury is. They explained to me what bond hearings are like, what I can expect if this goes to trial, what to expect if the prosecutor asks to do a plea deal. None of them pried and asked what I was charged with or asked about my story. And the funny thing is that, according to them, they say that no one really pretends to be innocent. And they said that I was the first person they've met in a while who's really emphasizing that they're innocent. And that's just an interesting observation. I don't know if this is normal because I didn't spend time in other jails or even in other holding areas. And it is moving that the other inmates believed in me and wanted to help me as much as possible so that I didn't have to suffer what they suffered. I spent Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday morning in the Charlottesville-Albemarle Regional Jail. I was then transported to a Fairfax facility in chains around Monday afternoon. I went through the same process, another long, boring booking process, fingerprints, collecting data, collecting my basic information, another strip search. The only thing that was majorly different is that the jumpsuit was green this time, and the area where it was kept was more like a block cell. So I had my own room, but I was sharing the general area with 5 others, and we were only allowed in our private rooms at night. I want to share this story because this is the experience of countless innocent people who are arrested and convicted. I also want to point out that the majority of the inmates I saw in both Fairfax County and in the Charlottesville-Albemarle facility were brown and black. Most of them were serving long sentences for nonviolent crimes, and the majority of them were forced into a plea bargain. Going to trial is expensive for both the state and the defendant. So usually the prosecutor will offer for some sort of compromisal deal, basically saying that if you admit guilt, I won't try to give you 20 years in prison, I'll give you 5. And obviously, sometimes the defendants want to take that deal because they don't have enough money to go through the trial process, or they're really scared that if they go to the trial process, that you will have a biased judge or a biased jury that will give you the full punishment. So unfortunately, so many people take plea deals that shouldn't take them, but it's usually because of bad legal advice or lack of financial support that they're forced into that situation. My experience of 6 days in prison illustrates that the police can make anyone suffer, and they can make you suffer without evidence. The police don't need much to get a warrant for someone's arrest. And the police don't necessarily even need to aim for a conviction. If they want to give you hell, they can do it very arbitrarily. The police can make you end up in jail without any checks and balances. The magistrate doesn't really look through the case or really look at what the police present to them when it comes to determining probable cause. In my case, DeCoster lied to the magistrate. He said that he had information that he didn't actually have. He said he had a confession. He said that the two testimonies of the two witnesses he interviewed matched when they obviously didn't. I want to be visceral and detailed about this because I want to emphasize how easy it is for the police to put people in horrible places. Thank you for listening. It means everything. We can't be silent in the face of police brutality and a broken legal system.